I'm Shane.
And I'm Alex.
And this is the RPM podcast.
Hello, and thanks very much for joining us again for our penultimate team launch of 2021. And today we're talking about Williams as they launch their FW43B. It's been a difficult few years. There's been some concern, or at least I've been feeling concerned. I don't know about you, Shane, but I'm concerned that Williams were in an almost constant state of being on the up, but never actually up. But they seem to have turned over a new leaf. We have Doralton now heading up a large part of the investment, helping clearing out some loans and the like, and generally improving the state of their company from a business point of view. And they have some very good drivers, and they could be in with a chance of actually scoring some points this season. So we're going to talk a little bit about what they're showing and the car, what we think of it, and maybe a little bit about where we think they're going to head this season. So over to you, Shane.
Right, so first things first, we should probably talk about the launch. That's why we're here. It's what the podcast is about. It's been a busy February and March, and we're here, like you said, with the penultimate launch of the season with Williams. Now, I was looking forward to this one. It's going to be slightly different. We had like an augmented reality app we were all meant to download. There were some issues before the weeks preceding because it was available on iPhone. And I know you were struggling to get it on Android up until today. You were still struggling to get that app on Android. And we were going to have this different type of launch. We've seen a couple of different style launches this year, from renders to promotions to PowerPoints to in-person like views of the car. And we were going to have something which we could bring into our own home. So I was very excited about it. But unfortunately, we'll touch on this a bit later on, but that all got sidetracked because something happened to the app. I believe it got hacked. I know you have more details on this, Alex, but that part of the launch was almost scrapped. And we had more of a traditional launch of a team statement on their website, which was very short and very sweet, mentioning, like you said, the new sponsors and their new vision, and some rendered photographs of the FW43B. The rendered photographs were of the new spec car. You can tell that by looking at the downwards. So you can see the floor cuts into the rear tyre. So at least we had something new to look at, unlike some other launches.
Yeah.
But that was about it. We had a lot of rendered photographs, and they were, it was. I like the variety. It was good instead of just the 4 different angles, and a very underwhelming launch in a sense that I was expecting so much more. But let's take it straight back to the beginning. The hours leading up to Williams's launch, we got a statement from Williams saying that they couldn't proceed with the augmented reality launch due to it being hacked. And have you got anything else on this, Alex?
Well, I did do a little bit of digging about this because I was a little bit skeptical because of something that I had seen earlier before the launch and before the announcement of the cancellation. So the claim is that obviously they've been hacked, and this has been repeated by a lot of the media as well. It's just, hack ruins Williams' launch. The word hack is one that is generally used to sort of brush over the fact that somebody has been a little irresponsible with their security. And as any IT person will tell you, the biggest threat to any computer's security sits between the screen and the chair, or in the case of a phone, between the phone and whatever happens to be on the other side of the person. So that's the impression of what I got has happened here, because somebody posted to Reddit the afternoon, so it had been yesterday afternoon at the time of recording. We're talking about the day before the launch itself. Somebody posted on Reddit a picture that they had taken of the Williams car as a 3D render in, I believe it was Unity. I think I recognized the program. And I can verify this because the post still exists. It's still on Reddit. You can still find it. Somebody had sort of leaked an image of it, but it was a screenshot that they had taken of it in a 3D program. And it was verified as true because the image that they had there was the same as the image that was later released, same as the car that we actually saw later on. So it really was from the program. And what had happened is they had simply taken the files that were available to them that were on their phone. An app gets installed on your phone, and just like when you install anything on a computer, it goes into a directory, and there's the data that makes the program work. But it seems that Williams, or whoever made this app for them, didn't actually secure any of the data on the app. And anybody could simply access the sort of source code of the app, which included the 3D renders of the car and a bunch of other images and sort of media that was part of the app that made up sort of what the app looked like and how it worked.
So you're telling me that with the right application on your computer, you could just download or copy the data off your phone on an app like you can do?
Yeah, I suppose, but that makes it sound a little bit more clandestine than it really is. It's just data on your phone. I mean, if you have something installed on if you have something installed on your phone, then it's data on your phone. So you're more than allowed to look at it and see what's in there, as a lot of people do. That's how a lot of people learn computers and the like.
Very interesting.
Sort of take apart programs and see how they work, just like you might do with a car if you were learning mechanics or whatever. So that's what's happened here, as far as I can tell. Now, the big thing is, of course, Williams' response to that, because they've said that we've been hacked and we're going to cancel the whole thing. Now, if somebody had just unearthed an image of the car, they wouldn't cancel the whole thing. You could still have the augmented reality thing. That doesn't ruin that. So the reason they've cancelled it is presumably because they've discovered that this is quite a significant security breach, and they realise that everyone is going to have access to all these 3D renders of their car, which maybe they don't want to be public information. So if anything, this person who's posted this to Reddit has kind of done them a favour.
Has done them a massive favour, actually.
It's stopped this from getting leaked out to everybody. So this is really funny when you think about it. And the outcome is actually quite good for Williams. The reaction to it has been, why are people scumbags and why have they got to ruin this for Williams? That's not what's happened at all. Somebody's just looked at the information that's been installed on their device that Williams have failed to secure properly. And they're like, it's a bunch of 3D models. I can look at the car. This is cool. That's what's happened here, as far as I can tell. There's the verifiable bit, which is the post on Reddit. I can confirm that.
Yeah.
But the rest of it, some of it is my speculation. Some of it, but it feels like well-reasoned speculation. So I think that's what's happened here. And the fact that an Android version never materialized is pretty telling as well.
Yeah, that's that makes perfect sense. I mean, we're both quite familiar with computers. We're both quite tech savvy, so it doesn't take a lot to do to just go through a directory, especially on an Android phone. Go through your directory and just browse the files which have been installed on your phone. And if you're able to open them up on Photoshop or Unity, then you're entitled to do that. That's crazy. I think
somebody forgot to encrypt their files. Somebody forgot to actually stop people from being able to just get hold of the source code.
Luckily, that was leaked the day before, and Williams were able to react.
What if they hadn't said anything?
Yeah.
What if they hadn't leaked it?
Because all that information would have been in the public domain the day later when they launched it on everyone's phone, and then it would be impossible to try and get that information off the internet. Like we say, once something's on the internet, it's always on the internet. But blimey, so that's
a pretty funny story surrounding this launch, and I think that the outcome is actually a pretty good one, all things considered. It could have gone very badly.
Did you see George Russell upload a video of what the app was meant to do?
We did still at least get to see what it would look like, yeah.
How did you find that? What did you think of it?
Oh, it's kind of neat. I was looking forward to downloading the app and trying it. I was well up for it. I was well up for giving it a go. But so it would have been nice to see it. But yeah, like I say, there's got to be some kind of security related thing where they were like, "Whoa, hang on a minute, we can't let everybody have all this information." They just
everyone slow down. We've made a mistake somewhere along the line. Call up IT. Someone's messed up. But yeah, not the best start to their season. But what's next?
It is a shame that it got.
Yeah,
blocked. I mean,
because it was something different, and from what I saw, the demo modes, and I saw a couple of journalists say they had like demo modes to review. They worked very well. It was very interesting. It was very smooth, and it just worked well. So it's a shame that
looked cool, didn't it?
Not everything came together for their launch, because it would have been a very different, but almost potentially paving the way for future launches in a way that they can get fans to interact like they did. I know a lot of people are saying, I'm going to put the new Formula One car on my driveway outside my house. It's going to look amazing, and take all these amazing photos of it going down the street. That would have been cool, would have been great for publicity. Unfortunately, they've just got publicity, but for the wrong reasons now.
Yeah, well, from a technological standpoint, they would have had Alpine pretty beat, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Alpine produced a lovely looking car, and I'm looking forward to seeing it on track and seeing how they do. But from a technological point of view, Williams at least almost had them beat. Very close. You just had to encrypt your files, guys. That's all you had to do.
And then, you would have beaten the PowerPoint.
Put them in like a shell that can't be opened. Like, just come on.
Yeah, blimey. Right, so what did we have? We we got to the time and we had a short video from Williams. It was about a minute and a half about the new car, its new design, what the design means. We'll talk about the livery later on in the podcast, like we usually do, but it goes through the design and what it means in the past, what it means going forward, the new sponsors, and how the team's generally looking forward to this year. I mean, it was expected. It was what a 1 minute and a half video was going to be. It was a bit of it was a promotional video for the new Formula One car, and then we had some renders of the car where actually we got to see a couple of new bits. Also, they were very reserved renders. They were very hidden. We got to see a couple of new bits, but a lot of it was kept behind closed doors, and we'll see that next week in Bahrain.
Yeah, we saw a little bit from the new staff as well, because that's one of the biggest changes going on with Williams. There seems to be some new faces coming in. Jost Capito, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, is the new Williams Racing CEO. I believe he comes from rallying. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong, if that's not the case.
I think no, you are right. Because I went through his background this morning. He's had a years in motorsport. From like being involved directly in the racing to moving up through the ranks and leading different teams, and has recently taken the CEO of Williams. So
nice. Okay, good. So then we have Simon Roberts, the team principal from McLaren. He was in an acting position before, and now has obviously taken up the mantle properly, which is good to see. They need that stability, and Simon Roberts has a lot of experience. And we heard from the drivers as well. Just a short note about the drivers, because I think that I kind of ragged on Latifi quite a bit when we first started doing the podcast because he kept spinning and stuff, and I kind of was taking the mickey out of him for being so obviously a rookie. But you know what? He's actually been pretty impressive, all things considered, during the last season, and he seems like a top bloke as well. When you see him in the videos and what I've seen him in social media, as much as one can get to know someone over social media. Let's not start any parasocial relationships here, people. Come on,
goodness.
Let's be sensible. Yeah, he seems like a decent bloke, and he's good sense of humor, and there's a very positive atmosphere building around the team, which is good to see. Because, like I said at the start, I was a bit worried they were in an almost constant state of it's going to get better, we're going to improve, and it just never.
They've always
quite
said
happens.
they're trying to move forward, but unfortunately, moving forward just kept them ever so slightly behind everyone else who was also moving forward. They never really moved forward far enough, which was almost a little bit of a topic of discussion today in some of the press releases I read, that the team is moving forward. We've had we've had new bits, we've got new sponsors, and their goal this year is to score points. Now, if we talk a little bit about where Williams were last year, and they came close a couple of times, but with Haas in the state they are, you can almost, instead of starting 19th and 20th, you can imagine Williams maybe starting further up the grid, especially after qualifying. George put in some really good performances, so the points I don't think are too far out of the question for Williams this year. I said it at the end of every podcast about the following race. I want George Russell to score points, or points for Williams. It never came true because George scored points for Mercedes. But this year I'm determined that Williams will score points, and we'll see them, hopefully battle the midfield. I get chills thinking about it, how they might possibly be able to do it. But I've got to stay realistic, and obviously this is just a slight variation of last year's regulations, which is why it's called the FW43B and not the FW44, because it's not a brand new car. A lot of teams have adapted this naming convention. It is almost a sidestep in regulations, ready for the brand new regulations in 2022. So as much as I'm getting a little bit excited about all this positivity and all these promises, I've got to stay a little bit realistic. And Williams have struggled over the last couple of years, but hopefully not as much this year.
Points do seem like a safer bet, and we'll see how they get along. Let's just talk about the car itself then. Let's actually move on to the car, and starting with technical stuff. Now, you mentioned briefly that we saw in these renders that it was fairly reserved. There wasn't a lot that was on show, which is kind of understandable. All the teams have done that to some extent. You would, wouldn't you? You just wouldn't show everything. Yep. You just wouldn't do that. So understandable. But we do see the obvious changes with the Mercedes power unit, like we have with the other Mercedes teams. There's like changes on the engine cover and side pods, and reworking shapes and lumps and bumps and all this sort of stuff that we might expect to see when power unit is altered. So not any huge surprises there. But what I did notice, though, is they've not gone down the route of the other Mercedes power teams, which is the slim nose and the sort of the getting air to go under the little cape under the nose. They haven't gone that way, have they?
No, I noticed that as well. The nose was quite wide compared to other teams, and I got all the other photos up. We've gathered them throughout the week, and I've compared all the noses, and it was a bit like AlphaTauri. AlphaTauri had exactly the same nose on their rendered photos, but AlphaTauri have since taken to track, and actually their nose is slightly different on the track. So it made me wonder whether Williams have just produced this image as a bit of a bog standard wide nose with. I don't know how to describe it for the audio listeners, but at the end of the nose cone, usually it drapes down like a nostril, but this has got like a stump on the end of it. You know what I'm talking about, and hopefully everyone else does as well.
If you think that's offensive, you should go back into the history of Formula One and see some of them cars.
Absolutely.
Oh my word.
You will not be able to watch them ever again. But yeah, the nose it's a bit prehistoric. These were designs we saw last year and the year before, which haven't worked because everyone has kind of gone down the route Alex just mentioned, where you're dragging the air underneath the nose and trying to create a bit of downforce. But I don't know whether this is just for show and we'll see something else on track in Bahrain. Williams have already done their track days. On a side note, they've already ran the car for a couple of days, which is fantastic. Which is absolutely fantastic.
They've got a car. They actually have a car this time.
For those of you who are brand new to Formula One and tuning into this podcast, firstly, thank you. But Williams have struggled to turn up to pre-season testing over the last 2 or 3 years with a car which turns on at the day they arrive. And that's if they arrive on the first day of testing. They've been known to turn up a day or two late with one car, and no spare bits. So the fact that they're running around the Silverstone track doing filming, absolutely fantastic. And that is a massive step forward in the right direction. The fact that that car will switch on and run before they get to pre-season testing.
Yeah, that's a part of the positive upswing that we're seeing. So that's encouraging. And not too much else to say about technicals on the car that I saw. I did have a pretty good look at it, but I don't really have as good an eye to this stuff as some. So I'm sure that there are some better people. There's Craig Scarborough on Twitter. He's very good. He sort of compares a lot of the cars. And there's that photographer. I think he's Spanish. I'm kind of scared to guess his name because I feel like I'm going to be completely wrong. But he's like this Spanish F1 photographer. I'm sure you'll see his photos around. He does a lot of that stuff where he does comparisons as well. Going to have to try and find that and put it in the description so that you can find him. But I don't really want to just guess his name and be horribly wrong. So I will find that out and put it up in the description. The time has come then. Should we go? Should we tackle this livery?
Let's talk about the livery, the new Williams livery. And I've got this smirk on my face, but I'm just going to hold back. Alex, you take the floor.
Oh, you want me to go first?
I'm putting the ball in your court so I can compose myself and have a response to what you say. Because we haven't talked about this at all. We don't talk about this podcast before we start. And we were both very excited to do this one. So tell me your thoughts on the new Williams livery.
Well, I will start by saying that I'm going to reserve full judgment until I see the thing in the flesh, because it might appear differently under natural lighting and in the flesh. If I put my hand over the monocoque and over most of the car and look at just the front wing, I'm like, ooh, that's pretty like clean and nice. And they're going for like classic, and they've got the yellow, and maybe they're going to bring in the sort of Rothman style. They're going to do a bit of that. And I start moving my hand back. Oh, okay. What?
Yeah.
So my reaction to this in general is I think I get what they're going for. It's quite bold in a sort of maximalist kind of way. It almost looks like a fan livery. Because fan liveries, they tend to be, apart from the really, well, in my opinion, apart from the really good ones, a lot of the fan liveries are very busy and very maximalist and very like throwing a lot of stuff at it. This just reminds me of one of those. It is, why are there 3 different shades of blue? Why is like the Williams logo kind of stuffed behind the lines at the top of the engine cover? Why are the bits of gold not like strong single bold lines like they were in the classic 80s and 90s car? Because they talked about we're going back to the 80s and 90s and we're going to bring back to life this style, which is great. Those cars look great. If you look at the classic Williams of 80s and 90s, and you think about, I don't know, like Senna and Mansell in Williams cars. they're very bold and very striking cars, and they're gorgeous, actually. A lot of those older Williams look fantastic. And this isn't really quite that, because when you look at those cars, they're like strong lines and big shapes, and the colors are very clear. And this is just lots of bits and parts, and they've kind of overcompensated for the lack of sponsors, baby. And
Oh yeah.
yeah, it just feels random. It really feels quite random. But I don't hate it. It's not ugly. It just looks a bit cheap and confused. That is my view of it. And maybe I'll warm to it. Maybe I'll feel better about it when I see it in flesh. But I was just a bit confused by this livery. What did you take on it?
Okay, so I'm very torn, and that tear may be around the monocoque. Like you said, the front of the car is just clean.
There's no
crisp,
relation at
all. Retro kind of stands out, and then the back of the car is something completely different. The back of the car looks like a my multiplayer car on F1 2020 because I put no thought into it whatsoever. I've just gone for the default design.
Just hit
yeah, and that's
randomize,
what it's given me.
do.
I do have some other thoughts on it, so let me list through these. The Williams logo. I don't understand why they've positioned it there. I don't understand why it's behind all these lines, like you've mentioned. It's just about visible. I don't know if it'll be that visible when it's going around at a couple of 100 miles per hour on the track. However, it's a very nice touch that they've kept that Williams logo there, because obviously the team has been sold now. So very nice touch that Williams logo is still there. And obviously the naming convention as well has kept, FW, which is really nice. They've gone through this, and I've read, I don't know how to put this without being horrible, but here goes. I've read lots of stuff about the car, and they've said they wanted to bring in the past success. So they've gone back to the 80s and 90s, and they've brought in these big, striking, bold colours, which look great at the front of the car. And it's a bold new change, and it's how they envision the future. So they're bringing in the past, keeping it current, and they're moving it into the future. They want to bring in their success from the past and move it to the future. It's a massive statement of intent, which I think is great. It's a really bold move. However, is it not a little too early? Like this massive, they've brought in these past winning colours to put on their current car, which is sat at the back of the grid last season. So we're going to have these retro colours, which I think look fantastic. Let me get that, on paper first. They look fantastic. And they're trying to bring the past success into the current era of Formula One. But I almost expected this kind of change next year. New regulations, cost cap, the cars will be completely different. They have a good chance to score some decent points next year because the rules are completely changing and the regulations are completely changing. But we're in a bit of a Bravo year. We're in a bit of a B year to 2020. This is just a slight adaptation from the regulations, so that there's a good chance, as much as I don't want it to be, and I'm sorry for being a bit pessimistic, but there's a good chance Williams will still be at the back end of the grid, maybe scraping up a couple of points. So why have they brought in this brand new livery to celebrate their past success and to try and replicate that past success in a year where they very well might struggle with the pace again? I would have made more sense next year when we've got these brand new cars coming out to have this striking new livery with a statement of intent. So I'm just a little bit confused of why they made such a big deal out of it. So that's my thoughts on, the whole statement of intent and bringing in the past to the present and going into the future. I'm going to echo what you said about how the livery looks. The cockpit to the front wing looks fantastic. Honestly, clean, crisp, retro. I really love those retro colors. Really simple, but clean and crisp. We've mentioned that throughout this little mini series of pre-launch reactions. And then the back of the car just looks like someone's hit random in F1 2020, and that's just one of the default designs Codemasters have come up with. And that would be impressive on a game, but this is real life now. So it's just a little bit confusing. I think the team is a little bit confused of what they've produced.
Yeah, this kind of breaks all of the conventional rules on, I suppose, graphic design or however you want to think of it. It breaks a lot of the conventional rules in that it's just a lot of bits and parts stuffed together, and it's no cohesion. But that might be why some people really like this. They kind of like how bold it is. And like I say, I don't hate it. I'm just very confused.
It's just unsettled me a little bit. Yeah, it's unsettled me a little bit. We've had some striking liveries this year, like Alpine and Aston Martin, but all those I was kind of expecting to be different. And Williams just threw me off balance and just brought out this striking new design, which I don't hate, but I don't love. I'm just unsettled on it at the moment. And like you said at the very beginning, until it goes around a track under the lights of Bahrain and, in the daylight with Bahrain as well, because obviously we get practice in the daylight. So we will be able to see what it looks like under both conditions. It's just a little bit confusing. But more importantly, I would like to put to bed, there is no Rich Energy sponsor on the car. I said it, I brought them into the podcast, but I thought that was fantastic. No Rich Energy on the car. That's not to say there's other sponsors on the car, because there are very few and far between sponsors on that car. But more importantly, no Rich Energy.
Yeah, no Rich Energy, thank goodness. So we can look forward to Rich Energy Scuderia Ferrari, presumably.
Blimey, here we go.
So yeah, it's just a bit of a confused livery for me. They have the W in the logo, and it's got a diagonal cutout as part of the logo, right?
Yeah.
But it goes the opposite direction to the lines on the engine cover, and it's not incorporated at all. Like, you'd think they would use that. Like, I'm not a graphic designer, but that seems like a good opportunity to use the logo and integrate it as part of the design. And no,
it's because on the other side of the car, it is actually part of the design, but on the other side,
so it only works on one side.
It only works one way, so we can only view the car from the right hand side, and it will look better than it does from the left.
Okay, so we'll make sure we only look at the car from that side then. I was like quite a defender of the Williams, the FW42, where they had that. Some people called it the toothpaste logo.
Yeah,
it had that fade from white to light blue. Yeah, I quite like that too. I thought that was it was quite bold. It was quite different from all of the other liveries, and that was what I liked about it. But it was bold in a way that was kept simple at the same time. The idea of having a light, two contrasting colours like fading in those particular colours, that was quite bold. I quite liked it. This is bold in a sort of Jackson Pollock kind of bold, a sort of throw everything and see what happens to stick.
Yeah, like you said, there's a fair few different shades of blue on the side of the engine cover
in random places as well.
In random places, it just doesn't. I don't understand, and it cuts in as well. So it's not like it goes all the way down the side of the car. We look at the rear of the car, and it's black from the floor to about a third of the way up of the vehicle.
A big carbon cutout, isn't it?
Yeah, it's who knows? It might look better in real life. This might not be the final render. Who knows? But it's certainly different, and this has been a strange year for liveries, a really good year for different designs. I mean, I don't think Ferrari will surprise us by any means necessary, but this will hopefully be the last shock of the year.
What we can say about this livery is, though we may not love it or hate it, it is thoroughly entertaining, and it's been great fun to talk about. And I do look forward to seeing how it looks in person. And I hope that it's fast, and I hope that Williams do actually do a little bit better. One tiny thing to add from me, which is just to mention that Jack Aitken is back as reserve driver.
Brilliant stuff.
Which is good. We actually saw him get some race time. He played a pretty integral part to the Sakhir Grand Prix, I'd say.
He really did.
Maybe didn't intend it, but he did. And he will have his place in history for that, and hopefully maybe some other things in the future as well.
Fingers crossed.
Yes, exactly. Anything else you want to add, Shane?
Nope, I just hope for bigger and better things for Williams this year.
Agreed.
Right, so there we have it, the 9th launch reaction. That was the Williams FW43B launch reaction from Alex and I. What did you think of the livery? I'm sure there are going to be wide thoughts and opinions on this. We've already seen a lot of it on Twitter, but if you're watching on YouTube, then let us know. Have we missed anything? Again, pop them down in the comments if you're watching us on YouTube, or tweet us at RacePerMinute. And you can also get in contact with us at RacePerMinute.com. If you've enjoyed the episode, please give us a rating or a like. And if you like what we do, please consider subscribing to Race Per Minute wherever you get the podcast. And if you really want to support the show, help us keep the quality content coming and receive some lovely rewards by donating as little as £1 a month at patreon.com/RacePerMinute. That's all from us. Join us again in a couple of days' time. I think it's 5 days' time now.
We get a little break.
We do get a little break, which would be nice. We can chill out a little bit. And it's Ferrari for their second launch of the year. It will be the first one we review because we didn't really see the point of reviewing the two drivers because we knew what was happening and their T-shirt stayed the same. So join us on the 10th of March for the Ferrari launch reaction.
See you then.